Welcome to the first session. The first session is presenting as an ESL speaker. So if you wonder what ESL means, it's English as a second language speaker, I think. So my name is Jia. I'll be your moderator, as what Amy said, and you're gonna have like 45 minutes with me. As you already know, that we usually have developers presenting at conferences from all walk of life, and their English might not be the first language. And, technical content that they have to present is already difficult in itself. And with the pressure of talking in their non-native language, that add that extra pressure as well. So I think the first session will, by the end of the hour, you get some advice for your next talks if you are ESL or English as a second language speakers, or even hear some of the unique experiences from our speakers today. So the panel of speakers that we have come from both Australia and New Zealand. We have 4 speakers with us. The first speaker is Leila Etaati, sorry if I pronounce this wrong. Leila Etaati, who is a data scientist and a Microsoft Data and AI Most Valuable Professional, or MVP, this is what we call them. And we also have Wagner Silveira. Wagner is a digital integration practice lead at Theta. Wagner is from New Zealand. Hi, Wagner. And also we have Inaie Ignacio, consultant from Telstra Purple. And lastly, we have Nelly Sattari, also a Microsoft Azure Most Valuable Professional and a technical team lead at the Challenger Limited. Now, I think I'll get them to speak a bit more about themselves, because we want to get to know about their story a bit better. So let us do the roundtable introduction. I don't mind who wants to start first. Tell us about where you're from, your backgrounds, and what make you love about conference speaking.
Don't talk, everyone.
Okay.
So I can start since my microphone is open. So my name is Wagner Silveira. I'm originally from Brazil, and I'm in New Zealand since 2002. I've been working with conferences or presenting at conference since 2011, and it's been like an interesting journey, like trying to land the first that first presentation, getting really nervous, still get nervous like right now when you open in front of a live audience. So that's what I think we're going to try to discuss here the next 45 minutes.
Thank you, Wagner. Leila, you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Leila, and I'm based in Auckland, New Zealand. I'm originally from Iran, and I started my first technical conferences actually in 2013, and that was actually a conference code camp here. That's actually we have, and that was actually really kind of really fun for me. It's a bit of stress, but after that I get used to that. And yeah, so now I think that being international, just not a native speaking English, can be some challenging, but is also can be kind of, we see that in the table talk, we see that how we can actually cope with that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a lot of fun. I started last year.
Oh, that's great.
Inaie, you want to go next?
Hi, everyone. Well, I'm Brazilian too. I started speaking on conference a couple of years ago, and it was very nerve-wracking. Like, was very nervous most of the time. But it was an awesome experience doing it. I suggest anyone who has an interest to give it a go. Really enjoy it too.
Thank you. Nelly.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nelly Sattari, and I'm originally from Iran as well. I have a background of software computer engineering, And I always actually like to share, what I know and inspire other people with what actually amazed me as well. So I used to do some talks and, like this kind of public speaking back in Iran as well. And when I came to Australia, I just, joined different meetups, user groups. And one day, one of the meetups organizers asked me, why are you not, going and give us a talk? And I said, what? No, it's not possible. It's not, like I felt a lot of barriers basically. But then that was the start. And yeah, it was around 2015. So I think we go through the rest in the panel. And I'm happy to be here. Thank you for inviting us.
Awesome. We're glad you're here as well, all of you. I think that's because you always think about your first conference speaking experiences, right? Like when you introduce yourself. Now, I think it's a good way to actually bring that kind of memory more vivid. So think about your first conference. What are the 3 words that came to your mind, if you remember?
Okay.
Maybe what I'm doing here, and why can I see the people? It's so used to do something in a smaller place that I actually look eye to eye, and then with the things that are bigger, you don't know where to look. And why can I breathe? Probably was those 3 things on the very first one for me.
Oh, that adrenaline rushing. Well, I am even having this right now because I always have that's kind of anxiety when I go public speaking, even though like I'm just in my room talking to my computers to you guys, and I don't even know who's watching at the moment. But anyway, so actually, Nelly, when you say that first conference, like that you remember about your first conference, do you have like any 3 keywords that came to your mind? Do you remember at all, like how you felt?
Yeah, I have a few like related to the before conference, and I have a few in the day. So before the conference, bottle of wine, a lot of practice and preparation. No
Of
sleep.
course.
On the day, a lot of excitement, and I felt, like a new door basically. And I remember I left the stage as quick as I could, so I didn't even, wait for answering the questions. And then I remember, oh my God, the questions. Then I get back to the stage. So these are the feeling that I can remember from that day.
You left the stage so quickly. Was it because you go back and finish your wine?
No, the wine was before the talk, actually.
All right. All right. Yeah. Actually, yeah, I remember my first talk. Like I did have like a glass of wine just before the talk. And I think it was in Italy at that time. The Italian was telling me, oh, you gotta calm yourself down, like drink some more. And I didn't even remember. To be honest, I just know I was so excited and I just couldn't remember.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Now, we all know that public speaking in non-mother tongue is not that easy, right? And of course, there's always be challenges. Now, I think I'd like you all to share what is the biggest barrier you initially face as a conference speaker, like in your first talk? Like, what is that breakthrough moment? And how did you overcome them?
A little bit on that.
Who do you want to answer?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I usually speak really fast, and it's not a problem when I'm speaking on my own language because people will just understand what I'm saying, right? But I found that when I'm doing presentations in English, I need to slow down a lot more than I usually would, and that was very challenging for me to keep a pace where people could understand me, and I would just pace myself out and then time myself through the presentation. I think that was one of the biggest challenges for me personally. Yeah, try to slow myself down.
So you would speak English at the same pace as sorry, was it the Portuguese or
Portuguese? Yeah.
Yeah, so would you speak English as the same pace as Portuguese then?
On most conversation, yes, because people like it's face to face and they're looking at me and it's a bit easier for them to follow up. But when you're talking to a bigger group where they're not that close to you, I have to slow down and give them the chance to understand my accent a little bit better, to enunciate my words a little bit better. Otherwise, it's just too fast and they can't process. So I had to slow down a lot, like from what I would usually do if I was speaking Portuguese.
Yeah, I think your pace is great now.
Thank you.
It's not too fast.
It might be a Brazilian thing because it's exactly the same kind of problem that I had in the beginning. And the other thing that I don't know if you notice is like I'm holding my hands because Brazilians talk a lot with the hands. Like we expensive, and then the half of the talk is with the hands. When you do that on an environment like this, that people then actually can see your hands, or on a area that is so big that doesn't matter that much, half of what we're trying to express kind of disappears. And did anyone try to listen to the presentations after you finish when it's recording and then cringe like crazy? Because with me, it's like, how did I do that? It's not like how I speak or how I sound. Or is it? It's really hard.
You're just trying to distract the audience, I guess. With your gestures and everything. I do that too. I don't know if they actually get the content or if they just look at me moving my hands all the time or moving my feet. Now, do you have similar experience, Leila?
Yeah, so for me, the hardest part was about making a presentation very interesting. So, we have lots of code. So people who are actually, they speak their first language is English. They can make joke and set very easily and make fun of that. But for me, it was really hard. And so I start to put some fun slides on my presentation first. So just make it fun through the slides and through demo. But after that, I actually able to have both combination. But I found that is a bit harder to start to make fun, and it's very hard for me to kind of describe it. And yeah, and about the speaking fast, yes, I have that experience. I try to speak actually fast in Farsi because I'm presenting in Farsi in university also. But when I come actually to speak in English, I found it many people couldn't understand that, so I have to slow down. And it's another benefits of a slowdown is not just for English non-English speaker. I have some voice problem due because we do training and speaking, so my voice easily gone. And when I meet actually a specialist, a speech specialist, she told me that this is a way. So to keep your voice always keeping good, you need to slow down. So talk and a bit breath and then talk. So this is not just actually is a good technique for all of people, even if they are actually English speaker.
Yeah, breathing technique. I always
Yeah.
forget to breathe as well. I just blah, 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 and then finish. Okay, I'm off. Goodbye. um, how about you, Nelly?
Probably similar experience, but I can categorize them into two things. One of them is the language barriers. In general, common language errors can be pronunciations, can be word choice, can be word order, stress on the words. So these sort of things at the beginning was a little bit too much, uh, along with all the things that you are doing, preparing content and all the other stuff. Another thing was the cultural barriers. So I think it's a very generic things. So in different cultures, we have different behaviors. For example, some cultures in terms of communications, they are so direct. So they just say something that might be a little bit offensive, or some of them, they have the humor, but it doesn't really work in other cultures, the body language. So we need to be just aware of those sort of behaviors. And for me, was in our culture, we just think that we should think complex, sophisticated, philosophically. So whenever I wanted to prepare the content, I just try to twist it and make it complex and start from some point and then go back to the beginning. Then one of my friends, who was kind of coaching me, looked at my content and said, "Why you're not just start from 3 facts, which is popular in Western countries? What are you going to tell us? Tell us what you want to do, and then review what you told us." Easy, you don't need to make it add a lot of complexity. And then probably that's one of the things that, it was a little bit of cultural barrier, and we just need to identify them.
Actually, that is really interesting, and because I would assume that if you go on the different conferences, right, and you probably have like different sort of audience as well, that might not be from like one shared culture, that might be coming from different type of culture. How would you prepare for that then? As in, how would you prepare for the multicultural kind of audience?
That's a hard question, but I think wherever you prepare and you present your talk, you should consider that those people are familiar with the dominated culture of that country. So that's one assumption you can do, and probably you can just bring some knowing your audience is another thing that makes your session is quite engaging. So is your audience are they funny, are they humorous, are they formal, are they casual, are they leaders? So that's part of analysis, which potentially is a hard part. But then maybe asking some questions and see how is the vibe and feeling of the people, then you can think about different approaches. It's not easy though.
Yeah, that's a quite interesting one, because I remember Brazilians also like a lot to joke and then make it quite informal stuff. And then even when you finally master the way to do the jokes, like Leila is saying, it's really hard to do that. Like get into another language and actually nail a joke. Even when you do that, then you try to do that on a New Zealand audience, for example. And then it said, you do the joke and, okay, let's continue because no one is going to actually laugh, right? Or you ask a question and don't answer everyone at the same time. And it's like a silence in the audience. So you can have to get started to, okay, not going to joke on those things here because I know that it's not going to have an effect. I'm going to do a joke here because it's going to have an effect. And getting used to that is actually a game of learning by your own mistakes.
Of course, you get like those dead air like from the audience if the joke doesn't go well, right? Now, if things doesn't go as planned, it doesn't matter if it's jokes or the content, the demo doesn't work. How do you manage panic and stress during the talk and after? Because you keep thinking about it.
That's funny, right? Because I was terrified on my talk, like that things are not gonna go well, and I'm gonna forget, and I'm not gonna say the things I want to say. All these things goes through your mind. But then I had a friend of mine that he came to me and he's like, people don't know what you're gonna say. People don't know what your presentation is. Like, it's wrong, but most people that they don't know that something went wrong. Like, so it's all about how you present yourself. Like if you don't panic and if you just go off the flow and then you shift a little bit and then just, make it look like that it's all part of your plan, nobody will know, right? So, and with the technical difficulty, like with demos and that kind of thing, I found that a lot of people panic a little and they apologize a lot. Like I think that we shouldn't be apologizing too much. Like this happens to everybody. Like, we've been to a lot of places and then it happens all the time. Just do a little joke, keep talking while you're fixing things, and then just go off the flow.
Yeah, I think that's a really great advice on how to manage with don't apologize. I always apologize. I don't know why. When I stop up, I'll just I'm sorry, but I don't know what I'm sorry for.
Yeah, that idea of don't apologize and then just go with the flow, I think is golden from, especially for when you're starting, because as you're saying, you're already nervous. You think that everyone that is on the audience is better than you, right? Because you just assume that, like you know so much about the content that you actually think that everyone knows as much as you about the content. And a lot of the people that actually go to the conference, they wanted to learn new things, so that they might be stumbling on your session without knowing anything. Go from the basics to the things. Don't assume that they know too much, right? And just go with the flow. Don't apologize that much, because then, and worst case scenario, joke that's the photos from the demo gods. That I always blame the demo gods anyway.
It never works. The demo never works, at least for me. So that's a really good point, because I feel like the audience most of the time they want us to do well. They are the easiest crowd because they go there, they want to learn new things. But have you experienced like that particular type of audience where they out there to get you, and sometimes they will just interrupt you and just make you even more panic? How do you deal with those interruptions when you present?
Yeah, it's happened to me sometimes. Mostly people that they are not familiar with the technology, and because I'm presenting in Power BI and Azure, and they are the people who are not using Power BI or Microsoft tools, and in middle of the session they start some. So why is that? I use Tableau, I use Python. Why we should use, for example, Azure? It starts, I try to kind of answer them with some question, but after that, I'm always said that, hey, I'm really happy to continue this discussion. So let's after session have a discussion. I'm more than happy to do that because it's interesting to me. So I always try to just try to answer them or try to kind of make them calm. But if I see that they are going to kind of interrupt me and don't allow me to continue my session, I always tell them, hey, we can have a discussion after the session. And that approach, mostly for the 60-minute, 45-minute session, always work. So yeah, that's it. Thanks.
Do they ever go after the presentation and talk to you about the technology of choice, or they just forget about it?
Some of them back, and so I try to speak, but yeah, so some of them, but not all of them. Yeah, so that's a kind of thing. So
I think that's really good how you handle it, because you're trying to divert, like you try not to get them to derail your topic and stick to the topic. Yeah. And then you say, okay, let's just talk about this after. What were you gonna say, Wagner?
I was saying this the two things. I always use that technique. Like, let's take this one offline, and then I'm more than happy to do that. But also, especially when you're a new speaker, try to find someone like your sponsor, the guy that is or the person that is actually organizing the event, to say, hey, if that kind of stuff will happen, do you mind running interference for me? Because I remember we did a series of lightning sessions because we were trying to bring new presenters, and then some of the people was presenting and being bombarded by questions that are not necessarily related, but they still didn't know how to fend for themselves, right? So I'm having someone on the audience that is like either the meeting organizer, and I say, hey, let's take that one offline, and then I can talk to you about that one later, or we can have a discussion with three. Might help and make the person that is presenting it easy, because it's easy after we do like 2 or 3 and you kind of battle scarred. But for the ones that is just starting, it's sometimes hard to like do that kind of stuff. So try to have an ally on the audience to help you out on that.
Absolutely. Find your champion in the crowd, because then you might not want to go back and for the next talk, because if you have like bad experience.
One more thing I just want to add to all this. Like one thing that I usually do when I don't want people interrupting me during my presentation and I don't want to take questions while I'm talking, I say it up front before the presentation to begin, that the Q&As will be at the end, and they will have the opportunity to be talking to me and asking the questions when I finish. So I set the expectation and they know not to interrupt during my presentation. That usually works as well.
Yeah, that's a good one as well. You just structure out like how you want to do your talk or how you want to present in your session. Now, go on, please.
Another quick point. So I just follow whatever our friends just told. I do another thing as well, which is the transparency. So my strategy is always transparency. So, any interruption which comes to the session can be, crazy questions or some audience or, like I remember sometimes ago, like there were two people sitting in the session and laughing, talking about something, or it can be any technical decision like issues. My strategy is just transparency. I just, tell them and ask them and try to be completely clear. Even if I don't understand any question or anything happen, I just set my policy to be transparent.
Yes,
absolutely.
That's it. Yeah.
That's really good tips. Now, all jokes aside, trying to get them to laugh at the content, because sometimes it could be really boring because it could be like very technical. What are some of the strategies that you have to make your audience stay engaged throughout your presentation?
I can start.
Yeah.
Go on, please.
Yeah. So I think it depends on if it's in person or virtual. If it's virtual, you definitely need to have a proper setup, proper light, proper microphone. Interactive demo, I found it really interesting because when you have the interactive demo, you need to just, like make the URL public or add a QR code to your slides and people can work with that. And it's just make the session really smooth. Another thing potentially is, all the presentations skills, like techniques. How do you want to prepare your slide? I found, one of the methods basically, which we call it Takahashi. That's the Japanese method, which, helps you prepare your slide in a way that it's quite simple. You have just keywords on the slides and you go fast on the pages, So whatever you're talking about, you just show the key points on the slides. So you don't stuck on one slide for a long time with different small text and, like pictures. You just go ahead and people follow that. That's something I found it. Yeah, and some games.
I have never heard of. Yeah, I have never heard of Takahashi technique before. I have to write it down and look it up later.
Actually, yes, sponsored us. Inaie was there, so we had a workshop and it was interesting. Yeah, and some games like polling games, digital walls for the ideas. I don't know, Fista 5 to make sure that they understand the questions. This sort of games. I use one of the applications called Digital Icebreaker, for example, written by one of my friends, Stafford William. So those kind of things makes the session, I think, really more engaging.
Yeah, absolutely.
For me, actually, it depends. If it's a one-day workshop, so it's different from the session. So as Nelly says in the session, actually, I didn't know the name. Thank you for studying the name. I see that one, but didn't know that. So definitely that one is really good. So I try to not just demo, not just a slide, so combination. And also, as I mentioned, I used some fun fun slides that related to the material. So, and of course, asking questions from the audience. So I found it is really good at the start because myself get a bit calm when I'm starting, when I'm asking that, hey, how many of you using these services? How many, for example, are data analysis? So when I start this talk, they also get a bit kind of the icebreaker for me. And in the middle of the session, also, I try to engage them. for example, if it's cognitive service like that, I always have a link, so in the same time they can play, so they can have fun. But it's different from the actually a one-day conference or one-day actually workshops that I have. So in that time, definitely I have a networking session between them. I provide some question and ask them to the speed networking, so they kind of know each other. And I see that at the end of the workshop, they kind of work to each other. Maybe at the start they didn't know each other, but that helped them to really easily go to each other. So that's, I found it useful.
Thank you for sharing that.
Don't think
Anybody else? Yeah.
I don't think there is much to add for that, but I think it's through what Nelly was saying and Leila is making sure that whatever you're using to present is helping you to tell the story or to pass the message that you want, right? So instead of having all the information on the slide, is helping to slide to making the slide help you to tell that story, and also for people to continue. Right, so I use a lot of the slide as kind of notes to myself. I'm talking to this, and then when I click the thing, here is the next thing that I have to talk. So then I can make sure that I continue. And one of the things that I use a lot on that is the presenter view on PowerPoint, for example, because I actually know what is coming next, and then I manage to do the link between what I'm talking and the next one, and looks like I'm really knowledgeable about that, even though I was just looking and then make the last session or the last phrase hook up the two things. So making sure that you see what's coming next and you don't get like lost, help you to talk that, and also giving them the information at piecemeal instead of like everything, because otherwise everyone is going to be looking at your slide and not be looking at you. So keep them waiting for more and pay attention at you instead of the slides.
Yeah, absolutely. And those complement why I guess like the presentation and the active way of doing the presentation help complement for us not being like having English as our first language as well, right? Because it's either reinforce or actually help them stay more engaged throughout the presentation. Now, Inaie, I wonder if, because we talk about the challenges and all those things, and I wonder what like in your view, what is the most unique element of the English as a second language speaker, and how does that help your session or talk or presentation stand apart?
I guess it's a different point of view, right? It's the whole diversity thing, because as a person who's not from Australia, not from New Zealand, or I have different experiences growing up back in Brazil, and I had worked in Brazil, and we had different ways of doing things. So of course that background comes into the mix of what I grew here in Australia to make my way of seeing things, which will be different from most people here. So I think that's the main advantage of being a second language speaker in a different country. It's my personal experience that will be different from the others.
Yeah, and then you can also share that, also bring new ideas that they might have not thought about it before into the content as well, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Anybody else want to chip in for this? You think, has there any unique elements of you being in English as a second language speakers has helped you with your talk in the past?
Not something that I do often, but I saw another friend that is Brazilian do is insert the culture or the Brazilian culture into the presentations. So you kind of make it stand up, because you always have a theme during the presentation. Unfortunately, he's always talking about football and not the best team there, but it's fine. But it's like showing the things around the Brazilian culture and using that as a way to hook up your demos and or do your pollings and things like that. So it gives you advantage, because it becomes kind of a novelty. What is going to be bringing next? And it becomes kind of a theme and something that you know for.
yeah, it's also part of your personal brand as well.
Exactly.
Cool.
I have
Go on,
another point
please.
to add. So I found some of the sessions which belongs to the second language speakers, is they actually go to the main point. They just cut the fluff, like because they don't have that much maybe broad um, their words are a little bit limited, so they just try to cut the fluff and then go to the main point, deliver the message. So I found some of those sessions interesting because of that fact. And as Inaie said, sometimes you can bring some of the stories inside your culture into your talk, which is interesting. Like I had like a entertaining talk 2 years ago, and I was wondering what I should talk about. But then I found one of our, interesting things in the culture, which is probably funny as well. And I talked about that, and the session was really engaging and interesting. So yeah, this sort of things can be a benefit for ESL speakers as well.
Awesome.
It's not all about, like barriers, I think.
No, of course not. I wonder, because sometimes pronunciation could be a bit of a problem as well, right? For non-native speaker. I get that all the time. I have problem identifying SH and CH, and sometimes when I say have a chat, it's like I'm saying I'm having a chat instead of having a chat. Well, I'm still learning. Like it's hard for me. So, do you think pronunciation ever discount your creditability on the topic that you present to the audience?
I think not actually. So that's as long as we can actually, present well. Though, so that means that the audience can understand the main content. I think the pronunciation shouldn't impact. I have some audience that actually in user group mainly that they stopped me and just said, "Hey, that's a better pronunciation of that." In the most of the scenario, 90%, actually, I found people who are even the English speaker, they said, no, we understand. And I think in our scenario, the main purpose is to actually to deliver the content. So, yeah, as long as it can be understandable, so I think there is no problem.
I think it's one of the advantages here, or for our group, is that we actually talking about the technical content, and we might not nail anything else, but the technical content and how to say those things is we learn in some cases. Like I learned half of those things here, so I actually learned with the right pronunciation. So that bit, that would be maybe the bit that would be misunderstood, that we nail. The rest of the delivery, you might have like different accents or accents, right? So that you might have a whole lot of other problems there, but not on delivering the content itself.
Yeah, I think that we often are the person who are hardest on ourselves, right? Like we worry too much about accents, we worry too much about our pronunciations. But most people, when you're speaking to them, they don't really mind as much as we do. Like as long as they can understand what you're saying, they actually like the accent. Is a novelty, right? Like it's something different. So I think we need to be a little bit more soft on ourselves, because the expectation, it's not that high when you're out there.
Absolutely. Good point.
If you think that at least you always talk two languages to start with, you're already kind of ahead of the curve.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's pretty hard to actually switch between languages, hey?
Yep.
Now, just before we wrap up, because I don't think we have a lot of times left on this session, I wonder what are some of your advice for the people who want to embark on this journey, giving talks at conferences, and their English might not be the first language. What's the advice that you can give it to them?
I'm going to steal Inaie's advice, that is talk slowly, because that is probably the number one for that. right? If I give one advice during presentation, talk slowly and breathe.
Breathe and talk slowly. Awesome.
Makes life much easier.
Yeah, thank
I
you.
gotta say, practice and practice and practice in front of people. Get your friends. If you don't have friends, put your teddy bears to watch you. Record yourself, but practice as much as you can. And the more you do, the easier it's gonna get for you.
How long in advance would you practice for it? Like how many times you have to practice?
Until I'm not nervous anymore. when I think I know my content and I can just talk without looking at anything, and I'm confident that I can just cruise through my presentation, then it's enough.
Yeah. For me, until I dream about it, I have to be really obsessed. Any other advice that you can share with the audience?
I have two more advices. First of all, is the failure is part of the public speaking. It's inevitable. So once you make yourself comfortable with this failure, then it will be enjoyable part of the thing, because without failure, you don't really learn. Like I learned a lot of things when I did something wrong, or I said some, as you said, pronunciations mistake, or lots of, a lot of my learnings came from my failure. Another thing is potentially learn from these failures and experience. Like I always run through my sessions when it's recorded by some of my friends who are experts, and I try to, get some feedbacks and learn from what I did. So these two, my advice.
Absolutely.
I can.
I think. Go on, please.
No, please go. Yeah,
I was just going to say that failure. Oh, there's some delay. I'm sorry.
Sorry. No, sorry.
I'll let you speak. I'll let you speak.
I just want to add to the other. So yes, that's all things. And the other one was attend to other people's session, even if you know the material. So for example, 90%, 100% of that content, but attending on some of the session of the speakers who they are actually good speakers is a good learning. So sorry about that. Yeah.
Oh no! You see, remember the first rule: don't apologize. Don't say sorry. Now I was just gonna say that that's true. Failure doesn't really matter much. What matters is what you do with them, like with what you learn from that failures and how you can improve, like in your next talk. So that is like a really good tips. And anyways, actually one last question, but because we're running out of time, it was about the resources. I know you're all gonna stay around, and we have this conversation or chat function. I hope you don't mind sharing your resources that help you prepare in your public speaking journey, and that you can share with the audience today. How about that? So we can hand. Yes, go on, please.
Sorry, I wrote a blog post yesterday, so I tried to put as much as I could and the references, so I can share it with the group.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'll make sure that it gets to the audience so that we can, share all of these goodness. And I like to read your article as well, so I'm a bit biased. Sorry. Anyways, I'm just gonna hand this session back to Amy, so I don't hijack other people's time. Thank you everyone for coming and have a conversation today.
Thank you.
So much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.